how important is ethics in this? Because as I've worked with people, I found that some of my clients have got really good, but they haven't even noticed they've got really good, and they actually start being able to influence people much more. And therefore, my view is the better we get, the more responsibility we have as to how we influence people, or the direction we take people when we influence them. So what's your thoughts on the ethical side of this?
Yeah, two things are very important, right? One is sustainability to
Right.
whatever you do. People are smart. If you convince somebody, and there's a lot of people trying to make a quick sale, trying to do this and
Yeah.
trying to do
Yeah.
those things, eventually will undermine your credibility. So what you want to do is think of what is sustainable. You want to create a path that is in the direction of the other person's values.
Yeah.
There is a whole school of thought where people say that you cannot hypnotize anybody unless you're in line with their own values, their own core values. There has to be something that is resonating with their values, and you need to align with them to take them down that hypnotic path. So any change that sticks because you are striking some of the core values, you're striking
Right.
something that the person wants. So I don't see much of a risk for it if you're thinking of this as a long term venture. If you want to be with somebody long term, if you want to have a recurring business over and over again, if you want people referring other people to you, these are all long term objectives.
Yeah.
So for that to happen, one is think of what is win win and what is in line with their values. Yeah. So that will automatically kind of set you in line with the ethics that's required.
I like that. I like that answer. Okay, let's move on. You've actually given us lots of examples as we've been going through this, but is there a particular story as an example? You got the floor. You have the floor to tell a conversational hypnotic story.
Sure. So let me give you a few small mini stories. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
And that should give you kind of a taster for
Mm.
what a long story should be. So let's say you want to embed the suggestion. You may start to view me as someone you can open up to. Yeah. That is a suggestion that is useful
Mm.
in many situations. Let's say a parent talking to a child, uh, a parent talking to a teenager, you being on a date, you being in a relationship, you working with a colleague or an employee. The suggestion is you may start to view me as someone you can open up to. So you can start by either referencing a story you read. There are 7 different ways to do this. Yeah. So you can either talk about a story you read. You can either talk about something you heard on the radio or something you heard on a podcast, something you came across in a movie, something you read in a magazine, something a friend told you, something your aunt told you. So you can start your story with that, kind of a reason. And you could say something like, yesterday I met my long time friend. When you meet someone and you just get this vibe that you can really open up to them and you can talk to them, you feel like you can tell the person anything you say would be heard and understood without being judged. It's a cool feeling, isn't it? And I felt like that yesterday when I met my friend. So that's
Mm.
a small example, but we are layering in multiple suggestions there, which is you can really open up, you can really talk to me, you could say anything to me. These are all suggestions. Yeah. Now, that is just a snippet. But when you cultivate that conversation, when you cultivate that topic, it creates that atmosphere, that vibe in which people are more willing to share. Um, Let me give you another example. Let's say you want to give the suggestion, sense an interesting chemistry. Yeah. Here's the story. Yesterday I was reading this interesting story in this magazine. When Jobs and Wozniak first met,
Yeah.
there was this immediate and palpable chemistry between them. Jobs' visionary ideas combined with Wozniak's suggestions and expertise led to creation of Apple. People say that you could sense a very interesting chemistry between the two. They knew that they could complement each other, and this created one of the most successful companies in history. So the suggestion there was sense an interesting chemistry between us. So I don't know if you observed that, Michael, but that was embedded
Yeah.
within the conversation.
Right.
Yeah. So the conversation itself looks very innocuous, but that is, again, you're creating that vibe.
I think that's very good, and I'm glad you emphasised that, because that's exactly what you can do when you learn this stuff. You can take what was a normal story and you can embed some really good, cool stuff in it. So I like that. I love that as an example.
It also helps you understand what stories and suggestions you should not embed. Because many times people unknowingly tell the wrong story and give the wrong suggestion, and the other person ends up feeling uncomfortable, and nobody can tell what happened, and they just say, well, there was no chemistry.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think you're absolutely right. And actually, I'm going to loop back to something else you said that I think is really important.